In a world shaped by stone and smoke, where mountains met the sky and stories lived in feathers, there once pulsed a city, Tenochtitlan. This is not a tale of conquest or collapse. This is a whisper from the heart of an empire that once breathed through rituals, maze and memory. Let the noise of the present fall away. Let the rhythm slow. You are entering a world where every sunrise is a prayer and every shadow holds a story. Breathe, listen, you are safe here. The day has ended. And with its passing, a hush settles over the valley, as if the land itself has drawn a breath and begun to rest. Now, look with quiet eyes across the calm waters of Lake Texcoco. There, just at the edge of the fading light, rises the city of Tenochtitlan. It stands upon an island carefully shaped by hand and heart, a place born from prophecy, where the eagle perched upon the cactus, devouring the serpent, where the gods whispered that a people would find their home. The waters shimmer in twilight, their surface like hammered silver, broken only by the slow dip of a canoe's paddle, and through the soft mist the outline of the city takes form. Tenochtitlan, a city of canals and causeways, gardens and temples, great marketplaces and sacred pyramids, but also of voices, whispers, laughter, murmured prayers, all now grown quiet in the cool hush of evening. Clay lanterns begin to glow along the causeways, warm, steady lights flickering like fireflies along the paths. Homes built of cane and mud bricks settle into silence. Children are called indoors. Hearths are stirred. The scent of tamales, of beans and roasted maize drifts gently in the night air. Here in the heart of the Mexico world, life is tied not only to the earth, but to the gods above and to the underworld below. Each breath, each action, each quiet step across stone and soil. It all belongs to a cycle older than memory. The sun has gone now, and so begins the time of reflection, the time of dreams. The city is still but not asleep. Priests move silently through temple courts. Torches crackle beneath the steps of the Great Pyramid. Somewhere a conch shell sounds, long and low, marking the hour of evening offerings. Tonight we walk slowly through the plazas, our footsteps soft as the air itself. We pass silent statues carved from volcanic stone, faces serene, eyes watching stars, their surfaces worn smooth from centuries of reverence. We are guests here, not in the grand temples, nor the bustling markets of morning, but in the quiet in between, the gentle folds of night when even the gods close their eyes. Come closer now. The stories we will share tonight are ancient, some softened by time, others buried in silence. They are not the tales of kings alone, but of judges, healers, potters, and warriors, of those who obeyed the law and those who defied it. We will walk beside them, not to judge but to understand. So let the night deepen. Let the soft sounds of Tenochtitlan settle around you, and let your breath follow the rhythms of this distant world. As the night deepens over Tenochtitlan, we leave behind the lake's edge and drift slowly inward toward the steady heart of the city. Here, among the courtyards and walkways paved with stone, another rhythm begins to stir, quieter than a drum, more ancient than any law carved in stone. It is the rhythm of justice, measured, patient, and deeply entwined with the gods. Among the Mexica people, law was not merely a matter of command and punishment. It was a sacred thread, a tether between the heavens, the earth, and the fragile human heart. Justice here did not wear grand robes. It did not sit high upon a throne. Rather, it stood quietly in the presence of tradition. and it walked softly beside the people. At the top of this sacred hierarchy stood the Huey Tlatoani, the great speaker, not just a ruler, but the divine voice of the gods among men. He did not pass laws with a wave of his hand. His decisions flowed through layers: elders, priests, military captains, and common citizens trained in the customs of right and wrong. Within the city, local judges kept careful watch over the Kalpuli, those neighborhood units bound by kinship, labor, and land. Disputes over land, marriage, or trade were heard in open courts, often beneath shade trees or in the quiet rooms of a noble's house. There was no courtroom shouting, no need for raised voices. The people understood that truth, like water, must flow slowly if it is to settle. Justice could be swift, but it was rarely cruel without reason. For those who stole, a chance was given to repay or restore. For those who slandered, penance might come in the form of public apology or symbolic burden. There were no prisons, no iron bars or cells. Instead, justice was seen as restoration, an act of setting the world right again. Punishment varied with the weight of the wrongdoing. Yet even here, mercy had a place. A young man, if intoxicated, might be forgiven once, but only once, before his actions were deemed dishonor to family, to community, and to the gods who watched silently from their temples. The elders knew that justice was not only for the powerful. Commoners had rights, even slaves had protections, and at times those born of humble earth could speak truth to the highest priest or noble. But justice could also be ceremonial, and for crimes deemed most grave, murder, betrayal, sacrilege, the punishment was not only earthly, it was spiritual. To offend the gods was to unbalance the harmony of the world, and so those few would be offered back to the divine, not as a cruel spectacle, but as a solemn correction of the sacred order. Tonight, though, we do not linger on harsh endings. Instead, we stand beside the magistrates and the village elders, and we listen to their calm voices, to the stillness of decisions made slowly, and to the certainty that each word spoken was weighed carefully like maize in the hand, or water drawn from a sacred spring. This was justice in Tenochtitlan, not the rule of might, but the balance of all things, measured, ritual, and full of meaning. Now let your gaze drift upward to the base of the sacred pyramid. The sun has long since disappeared behind the western mountains, but its memory still lingers, etched in gold across the stone steps of the great temple, the Templo Mayor. This is the heart of Tenochtitlan's sacred world. Two shrines crown its twin peaks, one to Tlaloc, god of rain and fertility, and the other to Huitzilopochtli, god of the sun and war. It is here that life and death meet, where sacrifice is not destruction but offering. Though it may seem distant to us now, for the Mexica, sacrifice was not cruel, it was sacred, reciprocal, a gift returned to the gods who gave all things. Each act was wrapped in ritual, every motion guided by centuries of tradition. When a great ceremony was called, perhaps to bless the coming rains, to dedicate a new temple, or to honor the sun's continued rise, those who were chosen walked in quiet procession. Their steps were slow, their faces painted with sacred colors, black for the unknown, red for life, white for breath. They were adorned not in chains or shame, but in feathers, beads, and woven sashes. To the people they were not criminals, they were vessels. As the crowd gathered in respectful stillness below, the priests moved like shadows, cloaked in jaguar skins and cloaks of woven turquoise. They bore ritual knives of sharpened obsidian, so dark they glinted like wet stone under torchlight. High upon the temple steps, the captive would be gently laid upon the chakmul, a sacred stone figure reclining, arms held flat to receive the offering. No wild frenzy, no cries of torment, only the low rhythmic chants of the priests and the hush of 1,000 watching souls. With practiced precision, the obsidian knife would part the chest, and the heart, still beating, would be lifted to the sky, a pulse offered back to the gods. To Huitzilopochtli it was nourishment, to the people it was gratitude. The body, now lifeless but honored, would be lowered with care. Sometimes it would descend the temple steps, returning to the earth through the hands of priests. Parts of the body might serve ritual purpose, bones etched with sacred markings, flesh consumed not in hunger but in ceremony, a solemn sharing of divine essence. All of this to sustain the world, to ensure the sun would rise once more, to call the rains, to balance the seen and unseen. No one sacrificed without reason, and none did so without the witness of gods and people alike. It is easy from a great distance to misunderstand such rituals, to call them savage, to dismiss them with modern eyes. But if you listen, really listen, you'll hear something else in the stillness of that sacred place, a heartbeat, a prayer, a breath carried skyward in incense and song, and beneath the ritual, a deep longing for harmony between the human and the divine. We leave the steps now, walking softly once more into the night. The stone is still warm beneath our feet. The chants echo only faintly behind us. The gods have received their gift. The city breathes again. Let us walk now, away from the towering steps of the temple, down the smooth, worn stones of the plaza where the shadows stretch long into night. The air is cooler here still, and yet it carries with it a quiet hum, not of noise but of presence. We are surrounded by memory, and here, in the hush of this sacred space, we come upon the Tzompantli, an altar unlike any other, not built of marble or gold, but of carved wood and bone, a lattice of remembrance woven from lives once lived. The Tzompantli was not hidden. It stood in open view, beneath the sky, beside the temples, facing the great ceremonial plaza. Rows of skulls, once belonging to captives, warriors, or ritual offerings, were carefully mounted on wooden poles, arranged in a grid both meticulous and solemn. These were not symbols of cruelty. They were declarations of gratitude, of honor, of the endless turning of the world. Each skull told a story, not in words but in silence. They looked not down, but outward, toward the people, toward the gods, and toward time itself. The people would pass the Tzompantli with bowed heads. They did not fear it. They understood what it meant, that life was not a possession but a gift, that death was not the end, but an offering, a return. At festivals, fresh flowers would be woven through the lattice, marigolds, bougainvillea, bright petals against the pale ivory of bone, a contrast both startling and beautiful. Incense would rise in slow spirals, copal smoke drifting like memory itself, softening the edges of what once was, and what must always be remembered. There is something tender in this ritual, not grotesque but intimate. The skulls did not rot. They were cleaned, cared for, preserved with clay and lime, their hollow eyes gazing toward eternity. They did not represent shame. They represented passage from one form to another, from life into legacy. To the Mexica, the Tzompantli was not just for the gods, it was for the people, a mirror of devotion, a record of sacrifice, and above all, a reminder that the world was kept in motion by those who gave everything, and that remembering them was not grief, but duty. As you stand here now, in the shadow of this altar, perhaps you too feel it. That ancient stillness, that sense of being watched, not with judgment but with continuity. They are still here, those who gave themselves for rain, for sun, for the balance of all things. Their names may be gone, but their presence remains in the stones, in the stories, in the soft wind that brushes the face as night deepens. That Zompantli stands not as a warning, but as a vow. Let us turn now, slowly, and step gently away. Leave the altar behind us, but carry the memory forward, not in fear, but in peace. For even in death, there is devotion, there is stillness, there is love. It is night now in Tenochtitlan, and the temples rest in silence, their stones still warm from the fire of the sun. But in the quiet corners of the Kalpuli, in kitchens tucked behind reed walls, a different kind of ritual begins. Here, where the scent of roasted maize drifts gently through the night air, the people prepare a sacred meal. It is not a feast of celebration, not one of indulgence or laughter. This meal is something older, something sacred. It is a communion between the living and the divine. The Aztecs believed that the gods gave their own flesh to create the world. From their bodies came mountains and valleys, from their blood the rivers, from their breath the wind, and in turn the people offered flesh back, not in cruelty but in cosmic balance. At great festivals, such as the feast of Tezcatlipoca or Siptotec, those chosen for sacrifice would be honored in life, dressed in the regalia of gods, fed, celebrated, sung to. Their final act was not a punishment, but a gift. Afterward, in ceremonies closely guarded by tradition, portions of the body might be prepared, not crudely but carefully, simmered with maize, wrapped in leaves, served only to the priests or to nobles participating in the rite. No spice, no salt, no desire, only reverence. This sacred meal, called Tlacatlaholi by some, was not eaten in hunger. It was consumed in prayer, with heads bowed, hands steady. To partake of the flesh was not to conquer death, but to honor it, to bring the divine into the body in the most literal, most humble way. Imagine the simple clay bowls, warm to the touch, their rims lined with steam rising into the torchlit air. The aroma is not sharp, it is soft, earthy, like boiled corn and stone. Outside, the stars gleam softly above the lake. Inside, the room is hushed. You can hear only breath, and the slow movements of those who eat as if in prayer. In these moments, the living are not simply eating, they are participating in something older than memory, a cycle of nourishment, of return. And when the final bite is taken, when the bowls are set down, the silence falls again, not one of grief, but of fulfillment. The body returns to the earth, the spirit rises to the sky, and those who remain carry within them the taste of the divine. It is easy from afar to misunderstand such rites, to imagine them only as violence, but the truth lies elsewhere, in stillness, in reverence, in the quiet places where belief and flesh become one. In the Aztec world, to eat was not only to survive, but to remember, to become part of something greater than the self. And so, on these sacred nights, the taste of the gods lingered, not on the tongue, but in the heart. Come now, let us walk again through the darkness. Let the hearth grow dim behind us, and carry forward this quiet understanding that even in something as simple as a meal, the sacred may live. There is a stillness that comes before battle, a hush before the flower blooms and the petal falls. Long before dawn breaks over the valley of Mexico, young warriors wake in silence. Their faces are already painted, their sandals tied with care, and their hearts calm, not with the absence of fear, but with purpose. They are not marching marching to war for gold. Nor conquest, nor vengeance. They are walking toward the field of ritual, toward the sacred space where offerings are made, not just in temples, but with breath and strength and courage. This is the Xochitlal, the Flower War, a conflict unlike others, not designed to destroy, but to harvest, to gather captives whose fate is not humiliation but transformation. Two armies face one another in a clearing surrounded by low hills and sky. They wear bright regalia, eagle feathers, obsidian ornaments, butterfly-shaped chest plates glinting in the sun. Every movement is intentional, every gesture practiced. This is not chaos, it is choreography. To strike is not merely to wound, it is to subdue with honor. And when a warrior succeeds, when he captures an opponent alive, he does not cheer. He offers his hand. He binds the captive's arms gently, and he walks beside him, back toward the temples of home. The captives are not prisoners, they are chosen. Their path leads not to shame, but to the highest ritual offering, to become, in the eyes of the people and the gods, a vessel of renewal. They are treated with dignity, clothed in fine garments, fed with sacred food. Some are even taught songs, so their final moments may be carried on wind and voice. The flower wars were not meant to extinguish life. They were meant to sustain it. The gods hungered for vitality, for devotion, for sacrifice willingly given. And so, these battles became a form of worship. Fields blooming not with blood, but with bravery. Each warrior who stepped onto that sacred plain knew that he might fall, or that he might rise, not to live forever, but to be remembered forever. At the temple steps, those who were taken in battle stood tall beneath the sky. Their eyes were calm, their breath steady. They did not struggle, for they had fulfilled their role, not as defeated men, but as bridges between worlds. Their deaths were not forgotten, their names were chanted, their images woven into cloth, and their spirits lifted by incense and song. It is easy, from across centuries, to see only the violence, but if you listen quietly, if you look with stillness, you will see something else, a culture built not only on stone and sacrifice, but on symmetry and sacred exchange. For the Aztecs, the world could not survive without the nourishment of the gods, and the gods could not be nourished without the bravery of those who stepped willingly into eternity. And so the flower blooms, and so it falls, and so it returns. Not all sacred moments happen in temples. Not all offerings are made of blood and song. Some are exchanged with simple words, woven reeds, and handfuls of cacao beans. Come now, step softly with me into the open air as the morning sun lifts over the rooftops of Tenochtitlan. We enter the Tianquisli, the marketplace. Not a market in the modern sense. There are no shouting vendors, no tin stalls, no flashing signs. This place breathes. It sings in the low tones of barter and rhythm, of footsteps, laughter, quiet greetings. Stalls are laid out in careful rows, each shaded with woven mats or canopies of fibre and reed. Under them you'll find baskets of shimmering maize, some red, some white, some the blue of distant mountains. Along one path, women squat beside piles of fragrant herbs, epazote, cacao blossoms, bundles of sweet-scented copal. Nearby, the fishmongers arrange their wares on smooth stones cooled with lake water, fresh axolotls, shimmering trout, and long silver eels. Further still, you'll hear the rhythmic hush of hands pressing masa into flat discs. Tortillas, fresh and warm, folded around squash blossoms and chili, wrapped in leaves, handed to travelers with a quiet nod. There are voices here, not loud but layered, mothers explaining prices to daughters, elders reminiscing over tools or obsidian blades, a merchant softly praying over his new batch of amaranth cakes shaped like tiny gods. These are the whispers of the marketplace, not secrets, but shared knowledge, gentle customs passed through calloused fingers and careful eyes. The market is not just for trade, it is where time folds, where the sacred and the ordinary touch. You may see a young couple offering woven cloth to a priest, who blesses it with a whispered chant, or a sculptor laying tiny figurines of stone and clay at the edge of his stall, miniatures of the gods, smiling faintly in the shade. And look, there at the far end, a gathering of poets and singers. Their instruments are humble, drums, flutes, turtle shells strung with cord. But their song is light, woven with Nahuatl verse, celebrating the sun, the maize, and the fleetingness of beauty. All around, time moves slowly. No one rushes, there is no clock here, only the shifting of shadows and the rhythm of feet moving across stone. Even the children know to walk softly, to watch, to listen. By midday the market pulses like a heart, not loud but steady. Offerings are exchanged without coin, with cacao, with cloth, with labor. Trust is its own kind of currency. Here, every trade is a quiet ritual. Every item passed from hand to hand is touched by hundreds of years of tradition, and when the sun begins its descent, when the stalls are slowly packed, the reed mats rolled, and the last tortilla is wrapped in its leaf, the tianquistli does not vanish. It simply folds back into the city, its energy carried in baskets and cloth bundles, in memories, in lingering songs. This too was the sacred, not through sacrifice, but through survival, through beauty, through the exchange of care woven into every thread of the day. The fires have burned low now, and the city sleeps beneath a blanket of obsidian sky. Tenochtitlan rests, its great pyramids are hushed silhouettes. The canals lie still, reflecting stars like scattered corn kernels floating in ink. But not all are sleeping. In the spaces between temples and homes, a few quiet figures stir, their feet bare on stone, their cloaks pulled close against the chill. They are the night watchers, keepers of silence, guardians of both body and spirit. They do not carry torches. They do not call out. Their presence is not meant to awaken, but to keep the sacred stillness intact. They move along the shadowed arcades, past shuttered stalls and sleeping chinampas, listening for things not spoken, a shift in the wind, a scent on the air, a stirring in the trees. The Aztecs believed the night was alive, not empty, but filled with spirits, gods in motion, souls passing through the thin veil that night draws across the world. These were the Ehecatl winds, named for the god who wore a duck-billed mask, who blew life into the stars, and carried whispers between realms. Sometimes, when the night watcher paused, he would tilt his head to the sky and feel the wind pass through him, not around him, through. It was believed that these currents carried the breath of ancestors, the voices of those long gone, and perhaps guidance. He walks on, past doorways marked with ochre, past sleeping dogs curled near hearths, past altars that flicker with the last glowing coals of copal. Every so often, he leaves a bundle of herbs at a doorstep, an offering of protection, not left with ceremony but with care. Sometimes he hums to himself, an old song once taught by a grandmother long past, now only remembered in the quiet. He is not alone, this guardian of the hush. High above, on temple roofs, owl feathers shift. Nightbirds watch with obsidian eyes. And somewhere near the lake's edge, a jaguar moves unseen, its breath low and steady. All of these belong to the night, all of them sacred. As he rounds a corner, he sees an old man lighting incense outside his home. The two do not speak. They bow slightly to one another, a gesture that says, "I see you," and more importantly, "I remember." Near the edge of the ceremonial plaza, the night watcher stops. He looks out over the darkened city, rooftops stretching like stone waves beneath the slow drift of clouds. The wind is rising now, gently, brushing against his cheek like the hand of a mother, or perhaps the memory of one. This is the moment he waits for. In this quiet before the first bird sings, before the first pot boils, before the temple bells chime the rising sun, there is a stillness so complete that it feels eternal. This is when the veil is thinnest, when the spirits pass most freely, when the gods are not only watching but listening, and so he waits, not with fear but with devotion. The night does not frighten him, it fills him, it welcomes him. And when at last the eastern sky begins to blush, not with light but with suggestion, he turns back, his footsteps as soft as before, and disappears into the dim alleys of the waking world. The spirits retreat, the winds settle, and Tenochtitlan begins once more to breathe. Somewhere beyond the hills, beyond the silent fields of maize, beyond the lake's mirror, the sky begins to change. It is not light yet, but the first suggestion of it, a faint warming of the air, the fading of stars. A silver blush stretched quietly along the horizon. Tenochtitlan stirs, but not all at once. It wakes like a flower, petal by petal, gesture by gesture. In the courtyards, women kneel before grinding stones, pressing soaked maize into soft white dough. Their hands move in rhythm, slow, circular, ancient. From reed homes, thin curls of smoke rise into the brightening air. The scent of wood ash and morning copal drifts through the waking city. In the great temple square, priests emerge from their fasts, their cloaks brushed with dew, their mouths quiet with prayer. They carry bundles of flowers, bowls of amaranth, and incense wrapped in coloured cloth. And as they walk toward the temple steps, the first rays of light touch the eastern edge of the Templo Mayor. This is the moment they have waited for, not just today but every day, for the sun's return is not promised, it must be earned, through offering, through rhythm, through remembrance. At the summit of the temple, as dawn breaks fully into golden rose, a priest raises his arms to the east. He holds no weapon, only a cup filled with pulque, the sacred drink of the gods, and beside him an offering of food, steamed tamales wrapped in maguey, a cake of blood amaranth shaped like a hummingbird, and a bowl of water from the lake. The people gather quietly in the plaza below. They do not cheer, they do not shout, they watch as light spills over them like river water, blessing their skin, their faces, their memory. The offering is made not in pain but in peace. A prayer spoken in flowers, a sacrifice written in light, and when the cup is poured, when the steam of the tamales rises into the wind, when the first drumbeat echoes across the stone, the sun has arrived. The people bow, some kneel, others weep. But all understand this moment, this quiet joining of heaven and earth, is what they live for. From the marketplace to the chinampas, from warrior to mother, from child to elder, each soul is now part of the offering. For in the Aztec world, the sun's journey is not a machine, but a living story, a song that must be sung each day, with food, with breath, with memory. And so, the cycle begins again. The gods are fed, the people are nourished, the world is balanced for one more day. And though the rituals will change, though the empire may fade, the essence remains, in quiet hands grinding maize, in incense curling through light, In the stillness of dawn that lives in every heart that remembers, we leave the city now, not with haste, but with gratitude. And as the sun climbs slowly above the lake, and the winds carry the scent of marigold and ash, we carry with us the most sacred truth of all, that each new day is a gift reborn. The city is gone now. The temples lie broken, the songs are silent, but listen closely, and you'll hear them. Below the streets of modern Mexico City, beneath the bustle and the clamor, beneath the wheels and the weight of new buildings, the old heart of Tenochtitlan still beats, quietly, patiently, in stone, in soil, in silence. Archaeologists move slowly through damp corridors of the past. Their fingers trace broken steps, weathered glyphs, and feathered headdresses carved into crumbling basalt. They kneel in the earth like priests of memory, pulling forth fragments of a vanished world. Here is a piece of jade once held in a warrior's palm. Here is a bowl still stained with amaranth. Here, the tiny footprint of a child preserved in hardened clay. The city above moves quickly, but down here, time moves like water underground, slow, persistent and sacred. The ruins do not cry out. They do not demand to be seen. They simply endure and echo, echoes of footsteps in ceremony, of flower petals scattered on stone, of laughter in the marketplace, of prayers whispered at dawn. At the heart of what was once the sacred precinct, the bones of the Templo Mayor rise again, not in full, but in pieces quietly uncovered. They have no roof, no priest, no sacrifice, and yet still they remember. Sometimes a flute fragment is found, sometimes a skull carved with turquoise, sometimes just silence, but even silence tells a story. Rain falls gently through the cracks in the modern city. It touches the same earth once walked by flower bearers, cacao sellers, night watchers. It sinks into the soil and returns to the roots of memory. The Aztecs believed the world was built in layers, each resting on the back of the one before it, each held in place by memory, by ritual, by story. And perhaps it is still so. Perhaps beneath every footstep in the city today there is a whisper, a breath, an echo, not haunting, not clinging, but resting. And when the modern world grows still, when traffic stills, and lights dim and the night stretches long, that's when they return. Not as ghosts, but as rhythm, as vibration, as the quiet hum of stone remembering what it once held. If you stand in the plaza near the ruins and close your eyes, you may hear it, the sound of sandals on temple steps, the breath of wind through feathers, the low call of a conch shell announcing dawn, and perhaps you will understand that the empire is not gone. It has simply changed its shape, and beneath the layers of time, beneath the stone, beneath even silence, the offering continues.